Hey, darlings.
Vasilisa and Christina were absolute opposites. Probably that's why they've been attracted to each other for many years. The game in the same sandbox continued with Christina's hysterics when it turned out that they would go to different groups in the kindergarten. Due to what? After a short conversation between the kindergarten staff and one of the parents, the friends were assigned to one group. And although Christina did not have enough knowledge and abilities, but the practice with the teacher, the connection between the father, and the assurance of Vasilisa to help her friends in school determined her in high school with in-depth study of foreign languages. Christina immediately became a soul and started a class. And very soon she got a bunch of new friends and acquaintances, since Vasilisa modestly gnawed the granite of science for herself and her friend. But Christine had to give her due. Despite her popularity, all general adoration and love, the friend was in first place. If Vasilisa could not go to another party or a hike, Christine also refused the event. Using such a strong friendship, many tried to influence girls through each other. Through Christine, they asked Vasilisa to help with the study, to spend time with someone closed only for their parties. "We will go to the mountains with you, Vasca," laughed Christina, hugging her friend. Of course, Christina was the first to meet the boys. And it was not surprising. Bright appearance, light, cheerful character, and clothes according to the latest fashion list attracted the opposite sex to the magnets. Young people were in the seventh heaven of happiness when the girl agreed to go to the cinema with them, a cafe, or just a dance at the school festival. They didn't even mind communicating with Vasilisa just to be closer to the object of admiration. And only Christina saw the true beauty of her friend, nothing inferior to her own. "Let's put you on. It's not so boring," she convinced her friend. "I swear, you'll shut everyone up. And even you?" Vasilisa smiled softly. "Well, I don't think so," laughed Christina. "But I assure you, you will be no less effective." "Thank you, Chris. But I don't like everything about you," said the girl to her friend. Christina laughed and waved her hand. Such conversations always ended up the same. But she lost hope that the best friend will someday change her boring dress to a more feminine and open-minded one, melt her gorgeous long hair, and emphasize with makeup huge green eyes and sensitive lips. Having finished school, Vasilisa went to university without any difficulty. But Christina, despite all the efforts and help of her friend, failed the entrance exams. But the girl was not depressed. She knew that her father would not let them part with her beloved friend, who also restrained her from her rush to a free life. So it happened. The parents decided to give her a daughter in a paid department. At the institute, Christina immediately became the soul of any company and a desired guest at any party. Vasilisa, on the contrary, was more and more immersed in her studies, moving away from her student life. Now, even at parties, Christina invited her only because she had to invite her, realizing that a friend would not go anyway. However, at the request of Vasilisa, she could refuse any event and spend time with her friend alone, go to the cinema or cafe. Vasilisa was grateful to Christina for this, and tried not to abuse her friendship, realizing that her friend is an absolutely opposite person to her. But sometimes Vasilisa also went to noisy parties, giving in to her friend's request. She even bought clothes for such occasions with the help of Christina. To her surprise, young people paid attention to her, but after a couple of times with them, Vasilisa got bored and she became indifferent to them, which of course pushed the boys away. The girl didn't understand how one could be interested in life only with clubs, cars, and easy money. Just before her birthday, Christina fell in love again. "You just can't imagine how cool he is," she told her friend, rolling her eyes. "Beautiful, athletic, smart, caring, gentle, with a sense of humor. It's something new." I smiled while listening to the excited flow of Vasilisa's friends. "Usually you were limited to beautiful, sporty, and sometimes funny. He's awesome. With a breath, Christina continued to close her eyes. And in bed, oh, get me out of these details. Vasilisa's friend's mouth was closed with a palm. You just don't understand. It was hot that she convinced Christina Vasilisa, removing her hand and widely opening her eyes. With such a man, you yourself do not understand how you end up in his bed. Chris, I really hope that someday I will experience the same feelings as you, but for now, do not drive me into the paint with details. Oh, you did not touch. Christina smiled and hugged her best friend tightly. I will introduce you to him on his birthday. Perhaps you will change your opinion about men. But I just warn you, my Tima, I will not be stingy about your treasure. Vasilisa laughed. Vasia, meet my Tima. Christina grabbed Vasilisa by the hand and dragged her to meet her. Vasilisa was a little embarrassed by the guests present. Party stood nearby and drank glass by glass, looking at Timothy with anger. It seems that your boyfriend does not like that you forgot about him. Timothy nodded at the fan. Yeah. Christina waved her hand as if chasing a fly. I recently met him in the cinema. I thought he was a decent young man, and he immediately began to make two sensical hints. I made it clear that I was not going to meet a boring guy, and he invited me to this party. When Timothy and Christina were about to leave, the boring guy tried to fix the situation and claim his rights to Christina, but the girl only gritted her teeth and advised to pump her brains before rolling up to normal girls. Then, while the fan was boiling the herd, she grabbed Timothy by the hand and dragged him out of the party. The instantly inflated passion helped him to be in one bed literally on the second date. It even more ignited the interest of Timothy, and he forgot about everything except this girl. She was beautiful, charming, unpredictable. He was impatiently waiting for a meeting with her, and after each meeting, he understood more and more that he had found the only one with whom he would like to spend the rest of his life. Meet her best friend, Vasilisa, even more convinced Timofeyev of the correctness of the choice. They were too different, as if from different universes, times, and compositions. However, Christina loved her girlfriend, and this was seen by an unarmed look. She cherished and cared about her. She listened to her opinion and was always ready to give everything for the sake of Vasilisa, even cancel a date with him. Vasilisa had mixed feelings of admiration, interest, and tenderness. Like a child, he would gladly come to her for help if it was necessary for male participation. Although, unlike Christina, there were no problems with the latter Vasilisa, as there were practically no caretakers themselves. The quiet, modest Vasilisa created the impression of a light life, and her eternal desire to study attracted lazy students, thinking that in a couple of compliments the girl would graduate from the university for them. But Vasilisa did not pay attention to them, or just took it easy. The most persistent were already dealing with Christina or Timothy. Sometimes Christina sat on a friend's lap. But you'll be a blue-haired man soon. Let me introduce you to a decent guy, to somehow diversify your smart life. Let's go somewhere, have fun. But Vasilisa invariably refused. Christina was confused. What's wrong with her? She's gone completely crazy about her studies. So you have a diploma on your nose, laughed Timothy. And she has two to write. What are you hinting at? Christina was madly angry. But you didn't even start. Yes, it's true, the girl realized. The course, the referata, the diploma, and everything else is not my business. Okay, let's leave Vasia alone. Do you hear, Vasia? But only until the diploma is protected. And there you will not get away from me. Vasilisa smiled and nodded in agreement. During the exams and the graduation protection, Timothy practically did not see Christina. The girl, under the guidance of the best friend, still took it seriously for the exam. He missed her very much, and when it became absolutely unbearable, he called and asked for a meeting. Christina agreed, and he was struggling on all the sails to his beloved's house to finally lock her up in his embrace and kiss her for a while. The girl was also glad to see him. Her eyes, with such greed, looked at him as if she wanted to shout, "Give up your studies to some mother. I can provide you with a life. You won't have to work." But he realized that Christina would never agree to this. With all her light, cheerful, carefree character, she didn't want to be dependent on anyone. It was only left for Timofey to wait. And here comes the long-awaited day. Today the girls had a diploma protection, after which a small party was scheduled. Timofey was already in the morning, throwing himself around the apartment. He was not going to stay long at this party. He had other plans for this evening and night. In 2 hours before the scheduled time, he ran out of the house and headed for the nearest jewelry store. The decision was made. He will ask Christina to become his wife. Vasilisa has already almost come to terms with the idea that the man who touched her heart is dating her friend. She was happy with the idea that he was still with her family. And from time to time she can see him and feed a little drop of hope that someday he will miss her best friend, and the one in love with her will have to seek support from Vasilisa. That day, on the day of the diploma protection, she asked Christina for the first time to help her choose a dress. The surprised and inspired friend rushed to help, forgetting about herself. Having tried on a lot of dresses, Christina gave Vasilisa one of her dresses with words, "But for you confidently, at once." The dress was really magnificent. It emphasized the figure of Vasilisa and shadowed her eyes. Glossy open shoes made the attention to, as it turned out, endlessly long legs. Christina insisted that Vasilisa's hair be untangled and curled in the embossed lock-on, supported by one. "You look like a nymph, like a queen," said Christina, delighted. To her surprise, Vasilisa realized that not only her friend attracts attention, but she herself does. Young people sincerely looked after her and saw her as a girl, and not only an object that may be useful to them. From time to time, she caught a slightly surprised, smiling look on her face, and she was happy enough with it. Surprised by her frankness, she accepted compliments from young people, chatted with them, and even agreed to dance a few times. However, she refused to make persistent proposals to her. The voice of Timofey came out of the stage. "I apologize for interrupting your holiday, but I beg you to understand this. I am very worried now, as for the first time in my life I want to do this, and I ask for your support." The voice was quiet, and in the hall hung an intriguing silence, violated by whispers. "Christina," continued Timofey, "come to me, please." The surprised girl stood up on the mini stage of the restaurant. Feeling that she would not like the words of Timofey, Vasilisa sat down at the nearest table and took a glass of champagne in her hand. Meanwhile, Timofey took out a small box from his pocket and stood up in front of Christina on one knee. "Christina, you are the most beautiful girl in my life. When I met you, I realized that it was you I had been waiting for all my life. I waited and waited, and now I want you to always be with me. Will you come out for me?" In the hall, someone was excitedly aged. Under excited screams and stormy applause, Timofey put a ring on her, and jumping up, he ended up in the embrace, behind which he followed the kiss. Vasilisa drank another glass and pulled herself to the next one. Damn, so romantic. She did not notice how 2 of her classmates came to the table where she was sitting. "Vasilisa, are you happy for your girlfriend?" "Of course." The girl tried to portray a delighted smile on her face. "For the future young wives." One of the girls shouted into the hall and raised her glass. She was supported by the screams and the ringing of the glasses. Vasilisa also joined the shouting, and then the glass was empty with a slap. Music started playing again, and everyone started dancing. Vasilisa was pulled into a common circle where she had never danced in her life. She danced as much as the Zapravsky disco. She didn't notice how much time had passed when Christina and Timofeyev approached her. "Oh, guys, hello." Vasilisa smiled broadly. "Congratulations. I'm very happy for you." "Vas, are you drunk?" Christina took her friend by the shoulder and looked carefully into her eyes. "I think so." Vasilisa did not refuse. "Are you crazy? Did you forget how bad you were last time?" "No, but Chris, everyone is having fun, drinking champagne. Am I going to walk with a glass of water, like a white crow? We should start sometime." "But not in the same amount," said Christina. "Chris, you're not my mother." "I agree. I'm your friend, and I don't want you to do stupid things and suffer. But since you take care of me so much, then of course continue in the same spirit. I won't say a word to you." Tim went. "The girl has grown up, and she no longer needs our care." The angry Christina turned around and went to see Vasilisa. Timofey left a worried look on Vasilisa and rushed for his bride. "What am I doing?" The girl's head was blown. "What am I trying to prove? Is it not my best friend, with whom we have been together since childhood, to blame that her boyfriend, her future husband, fell in love with her, not with me? Is it not my fairy's fault that I was in him from the first glance? They have always treated me so well, cared for me, protected me from all the troubles, wishing me good. And I behaved like a pig, and I also got drunk." "Chris, wait!" shouted Vasilisa and ran after her friend. Christina heard her scream, stopped, and turned. "Chris, forgive me. I don't know what I'm saying. You're right, and I'm not a grateful pig. But what are you talking about, Vasya?" Christina came up to her friend and hugged her. "You're wonderful." She just overcame a little and over-enhanced. "You lived in stress for the whole year because of these graduation exams and diplomas. It's not surprising that your nerves gave up. It was me who had fun on the full swing. You studied for us both. It's my fault that I left you today, who took care of his personal life. So you relaxed as you did. Forgive me." "Oh, Chris." Vasilisa was ready to cry. The tears shone in the eyes of Christina, too. "So, girls, I think we'd better get out of here and sit in some calmer place where we can talk, drink, and teach Vasilisa the right way to celebrate the event. How do you like it? Let's go." The friends happily nodded. Vasilisa, although she threw on a coat, grabbed a bag and a box with a gift and left the house. She stopped loving this holiday 3 years ago. When she remembered it, she wanted to climb all the locks, climb under the blanket, and not get out of there for at least 3 days. But she had to buy gifts, pick up the outfit, and go celebrate the new year by visiting her best friend and her husband. At first, Vasilisa tried to refuse, referring to the fact that the new year is a family holiday, and she doesn't want to interfere with the quiet family happiness of her friend. But Christina was not inclined. "Who are you? Not a family, is that? We are from the same generation, better than relatives and sisters. Our parents have their own companies and interests. You will be bored with them. So I don't interfere with any of them. You are a member of our family, and you must celebrate the new year with us." Supported Timofey's wife. "But you shouldn't celebrate with your colleagues. What if they get bored of you? Or, on the contrary, they will be too obsessive? Or you will get tired. And here we are. And at any moment you can go and rest in the room that we have allocated for you. And what about colleagues? They have ordered a wonderful restaurant with a holiday program. And if I suddenly get bored of everything, I will easily take a taxi and go home." Taxi. On the New Year's Eve, Christina laughed. "I assure you, it will be unreal. In general, we have a point." And for the 3rd year in a row, Vasilisa suffered the torments of being present on the New Year's Eve around her best friend and her husband, in whom Vasilisa was secretly in love, and to the disappointment of which this feeling did not want to leave her. Immediately after the institute, Vasilisa was appointed to the International Tourism Agency, where she became the head of the department a year later. And it was not surprising. Her red diploma was confirmed by excellent knowledge of languages and cultures of different countries. Colleagues, at first skeptical about her education documents, began to respect her over time and appreciate the management. Christina started a company where Timothy worked as an interpreter, but according to her stories, she did not do much with translations. She mostly flirted with men and colleagues and seduced her husband. Timothy was very desperate for a wife, and he was in love with her. Referring to her strong occupation, Vasilisa tried to see her friends as rarely as possible. It was too painful to see how a beloved man was experiencing the same as she did, but to another woman. But it became even more painful because Timothy sincerely considers her a friend. But no matter how hard Vasilisa tried to avoid meeting her friends, 3 times a year she still had to be in their society, on New Year's Eve and on the day of the spouse's birth. "Hello, Happy New Year?" Christina was shivering, taking a gift box from Vasilisa's hand. At the same time, Timothy helped to take off the girl's coat. "Come in, you look great." "Thank you, you are also great." So, we exchanged compliments, and now let's go. I'll introduce you to the guests. Christina dragged her friend to the big living room, where there were already several people. "You didn't tell me you were going to have guests." With a worried whisper, Vasilisa turned to her friend. "We decided that we had already spent enough time together, and in order not to bore each other, we decided to diversify our society with other people. Yes, you probably are tired of spending the holiday only with me and Timothy." Christina replied and smiled broadly at the 2 men they approached at that time. "Vasilisa, let me introduce you to my colleagues and Timothy. Artem and Kirill. Men, please come in. My best friend Vasilisa." "Very nice." Each of the men kissed Vasilisa's hand. Then Christina introduced her to her friends, Andre and Irina. They were together in Italy, she whispered to Vasilisa, and her friend at work, Diana. After the greetings, Christina looked at Timothy, understood her look, and said loudly, "Well, since everyone is in the assembly, then you can sit at the table." The participants agreed and stretched to the chicly covered table standing right in the living room. Vasilisa's place was between Artem and Kirill. Christina sat behind Kirill, then Timothy, Irina, Andre, and closed Diana's circle. For a moment, Vasilisa showed that Diana was not happy with such a landing, but the girl immediately threw it out of her head, focusing on her behavior. Artem turned out to be a great interlocutor and a careful gentleman. He tried to pay attention to both Vasilisa and Diana. Timothy was interested in discussing something with his wife. But Christina and Kirill. Vasilisa noticed this not immediately, but she suddenly felt that her friend was too close to the interlocutor. Kirill's gaze did not correspond to the gaze of her friend and colleague. He was like petting and dressing Christina with this gaze, and she, promising him a lot, answered with her eyes. Vasilisa shook her head. "It can't be. Her friend is not like that. Yes, she is windy, a shameless coquette, but she loves her husband and is true to him." Having decided that she thought that Vasilisa had joined the conversation between Diana and Artem again. After a while, it seemed to her that Diana was looking at Kirill and Christina in a strange way. In her eyes, there was anger and despair. "What's wrong with you today?" Vasilisa said to herself. "You're all night long thinking about some nonsense." The girl looked at her glass. He was not devastated. During the whole time, she drank very little from him at the table. Her thoughts were disturbed by the loud voice of Timothy. "So, ladies and gentlemen, in a couple of minutes the currents will be beaten. I ask the men present here to fill the glasses of our ladies." They cheered at the table. Did you hear the claps of the champagne open from the glass? With the last fight of the currents, everyone clapped together. They dried their glasses and began to congratulate each other. Vasilisa saw how Timothy and Christina began to kiss. Andres and Irina's spouses also hugged. Diana received a portion of kisses from all the men present. Then it was Vasilisa's turn. "Happy New Year!" She was hugged by Artem, Kirill, and Andre in turn. Happy New Year! Timofey lightly touched her lips with his own hands and immediately turned away, amazed by what he had done. Vasilisa smiled as if she had not seen anything wrong with it, and also quickly, kissing him in the lips, turned away to congratulate Diana. Her cheeks burned, but Timofey and Vasilisa knew what was wrong. After mutual congratulations and some more time to warm up, Timofey wanted to turn on the music. Diana suggested to Vasilisa to go to powder her nose, but instead of a bath, she pulled her to a large lodge. Having opened the window, she took out a pack of cigarettes and pulled Vasilisa. She negatively shook her head. Having shook her shoulders, Diana smoked. How do you like the holiday? Unusual. Vasilisa answered honestly. Why? Usually we meet New Year's Eve together, and I'm not a fan of the company, and here, Vasilisa looked at the interlocutor, who was looking at her with interest. No, don't think. Just me and Christina are very different, but we've been friends since early childhood. We are almost inseparable, like twins. Unnoticed, Diana shook her head. Well, yes, I'm just into work now. Christina became a married woman, and we rarely see each other. Only on such holidays. Diana wanted to say something else, but at this time, Artem entered the lodge. Girls, I'll join you? Yes, of course, answered both Vasilisa. Moreover, I am already cold, but I did not want to leave Diana alone. You're just in time. Vasilisa left the lodge and returned to the living room. Timothy was interested in discussing something with his wife. Christina and Kirill were nowhere to be seen. Having decided that the friend had gone to the bedroom for some reason, Vasilisa went there. In the middle of the room, there was a frequent breath and the sounds of kisses. In the hugged lovers, Vasilisa recognized her friend and Kirill. Chris, are you in your senses? Vasilisa was sitting in a cafe opposite her friend and even forgot about the melted ice cream. This is how she was being disassembled by the contradictory feelings. I saw everything. What did you see? Asked Christina calmly. Kirill, how can you? It's been 2 months since that unhappy New Year when Vasilisa knocked on her friend's door for a bribe. Understand me correctly. A wonderful husband. I really love him and want to be with him, but last year he became so boring. If we used to go everywhere with him, have fun, now he insists on a normal family. He wants me to give birth to him, to behave like a normal wife, to cook borscht, to create comfort, to have children. What happened to him? I don't understand. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for children. I will definitely give birth to a couple of beautiful babies one day. But not now. And he wants it now. But that's exactly why you created a family. I married him to be with him, so that he would be mine, and so that we would always be together. Do you love him? Well, of course, just now is not the time to tie yourself to the housewife. Christina, begging, looked at her friend. Are you judging me? I think you just need to talk to Timofey about this topic and not walk behind his back. You think I didn't say it? He thinks differently. He said that he would stop living only for himself. It's time to think about the future. And I don't want to. I will be bored with such a life. But cheating. You just can't imagine how Timofey interfered with this normal family life. He constantly talks about it, pushing up women's magazines with smiling housewives around children. And Kirill? Here Christina smiled dreamily. He makes my life not boring. Chris, I still don't understand you. Well, that's me. Christina shook her head and looked at her friend, begging. You know I can't sit still. I need drive, movement, noisy companies, and sharp sensations. For the first time in life, Vasilisa became hostile. If she used to understand her girlfriend and even a little envied her security and responsibility, then now she stopped understanding her. She suddenly realized with horror what they are, in fact, different people, what are their different priorities and generally life ideas. And she was also very offended by Timofey. According to Christina, he is a dream of any girl, but she herself does not appreciate it. Vasilisa said goodbye to a friend who did not understand why her mood suddenly deteriorated. Having shook her shoulders, the girl looked around the cafe. At the bar stand sat a solid man with an interest in her gaze. Christina easily smiled at him and immediately received a response from the man raised in. Was hinting at the intrigue. "Hello, Vajia. Did you recognize this Timothy?" "Of course I did." She could recognize his voice from a million. Having gathered her strength, Vasilisa tried to speak without being forced. "Hello, Tima. Of course I recognized him, especially since your number is recorded on my phone. Can we meet and talk?" The girl's heart dropped. What does he want to talk to her about? Did he really find out about Christina's betrayal? And if he did, then he thinks that she, Vasilisa, knows. He forgives Christina. He loves her. But with Vasilisa, perhaps he will break all relations. He will not tolerate betrayal. But what could she do? Not to take away a friend from another guard. And if he decided that they were flirting? That it was Vasilisa who lured Christina to change her husband. "Sorry, Timo, I have a lot of work to do." Vasilisa couldn't look him in the eye. "Well, Vase, please, it's very important to me. I agree to meet with you at any time and place that is convenient for you." It didn't seem like Timothy wanted to fight her. We need to take a risk, and at the same time find out what happened to him, that he needs her help. "Okay, come to my office. We have a nice cafe downstairs. Wait for me there. I'll go down." "Thank you, Vajia." 10 minutes later, another call came. "I'm on the spot." So he was somewhere nearby. Vasilisa was nervous again, but there was nothing to do. "I ordered you coffee. If you want anything else, just tell me." Vito Timothy was angry. "No, thanks." "What happened?" "Vajia, I don't know how to say it, but—" "Christina." Timothy took Vasilisev's hands, which made the girl dizzy, and she hardly understood anything he said. But he was trying to get rid of it. "You know, when I met her, she was so bright, cheerful, and charming. She attracted her unremitting energy like a magnet. I fell in love with her. But now I thought that all this would pass, and we would live a quiet family life, give birth to children. But she, you know, Vasya, Christina does not change. She still needs these parties until morning. Fun and noisy companies. And I have already grown out of all this. And I don't know how to convince her that it's time to stop. After all, we are not young. Tim, I think it's too early to talk about old age." Vasilisa softly uttered. "Christina has always been like this, and it is unlikely that she will change in the near future. That's why I wanted to meet you. You're close friends. She must listen to you." "Tim, you're wrong. We are close friends, but we always respected each other's personal lives and did not interfere in the entertainment. I do not ask you to convince her. Just talk to her. Find out what her plans are for the future. Maybe you will somehow manage to change her opinion about family life. At least a little bit." "Okay, Tim. I'll try to talk to her and help your marriage. But I don't promise any results." Vasilisa got up. She couldn't stand the touch of his hand anymore. The mind stopped listening to her. Timofeyev jumped for her and grabbed her by the hand again. "Thank you, Vajia." He quickly poked her in the cheek. The girl carefully released her hands. "Bye, Tim." After meeting Timofeyev, Vasilisa was not herself. In her head, jumping from one to another, counter-messages were spinning. How to convince Christina that her cheats can significantly ruin her life? Or maybe, well, her? Christina can't be fixed. And for her, for Vasilisa, this is a chance to get closer to Timofey. And when he finds out about his wife's cheats, she will be next to him, Vasilisa. And perhaps her support will make him look at her, not as a friend, but as a woman, a calm, loving, domestic, ready for family life. "What are you talking about?" Vasilisa herself said. "You are judging Christina, and you are ready to take her husband away? Well, let's not take him away, but take advantage of the situation. What kind of a friend are you after all?" Vasilisa already pulled up to the phone to call her friend. But the call from the phone stopped her. Vasily Zeti, the boss, was as always short and rude. It is not surprising that before organizing his tour agency, Oleg Mihailovich went through all the hardships of military service, visited several hot spots, and having served until the colonel, retired. He couldn't enjoy doing nothing for a long time and decided to open his own tour agency, which, thanks to his command and communication, quickly grew and became one of the most in demand in the country. I'm listening to you, Oleg Mihailovich. All the tour agency employees, for example, the head of the tour agency, tried to be punctual and brief in the army. So, Vasilisa, I think you know that our business in Indonesia is not doing as well as we would like it to be. Vasilisa quickly nodded. It seems that the direction is in demand, and we have been sending tourists there for a long time, and everything is some kind of problem. I think it's all because of the remote control, Oleg Mihailovich suggested Vasilisa. So I decided that we should open our office there. A branch. Well, good idea. You're entrusting me with this? Yes. Okay. I'll send a group of our specialists there. Let them pick up staff, a room for the office, set up connections. No. I'm afraid that nothing will change with the local staff. They need a manager from us, and on a regular basis. Well, I think some of the employees will agree to move to live in Bali, for example. Vasilis, I meant you. I looked at the boss's girlfriend. Me? But why? You're a very good specialist. You have excellent knowledge of languages. And as a leader, you have well recommended yourself. And, by the way, you have no family. It's problematic to send a whole family to another country for a PMG. But you were the first one. But Oleg Mihailovich, it was unpleasant for Vasilisa that she was decided like this. And what about the fact that she is not married? She has parents, friends, acquaintances. Why should she leave everything to the company? Vasilisa, wait, don't rush with conclusions. I give you a month to think it over. Think it over, weigh it all, and agree. In turn, I promise you a significant increase in the deposit. A small shale on the ocean shore due to the company and my own car. The management of the branch will be completely up to you. The only thing I will expect from you is to eliminate problems and increase profits. I need to think and consult with my relatives. I'm not quite lonely after all. Of course, Vasilisa. You have a whole month, and I don't promise anything. And in general, I'm not sure I'll agree. A month, Vasilisa. Well, Dinyuk. Vasilisa was sitting in her office and looking out the window with an unseemly look. At first, Timofey was an unambiguous request for me. Then Oleg Mihailovich. What? Can she leave everything and run to Indonesia? Let them figure it out themselves without me. And I'll get myself a job so as not to think. The change of place, they say, helps. But from the thought that she may never see Timofey again, my heart was torn apart into many parts, and the girl wanted to leave. So, we need to postpone the question of Indonesia for a couple of days and deal with the current problems. Vasilisa decided. I have to talk to Christina at least to make sure that I can't help Timofey with anything. At the same time, we will discuss my possible departure with her. Having come to this conclusion, Vasilisa took off the phone and dialed the parent's number. She needs to calm down and hear an independent and adequate opinion. Parents will not advise you badly. Having asked for work earlier, Oleg Mihailovich, hoping for her consent, was ready to fulfill any of her wishes. A couple of hours later, Vasilisa was already with her parents. Well, daughter? Father pulled his legal glass after dinner and politely looked at his daughter. I think this is a good start in your career, and even not in material benefits. You are given complete freedom of action, and this is worth a lot. You will be the owner yourself and will only be counted directly before the management. Yes, and, as I understand it, if you deteriorate the indicators, and you, I'm sure, will only increase them. Dad, but it's so foreign for a long time. We will not see each other at all. We don't meet so often, and then we will go to you on vacation. Yes, and no one canceled the video call. So we will see each other much more often than living in one city. Vasilisa sighed. Maybe the father is right. But how about being with Christina and Timofey? The girl stayed to spend the night at the parents'. Before going to bed, Mom entered Vasilisa's room. She stroked her daughter on the head. Maybe you can share? Perhaps I can help you to dispel your doubts. The girl looked at her mother, taking a deep breath, and began her story. When Vasilisa entered the cafe, Christina was already there. The girl did not slip away, as if from the table where her friend was sitting. A man rose up and hurriedly walked away to the bar. He rolls up, was interested mingling Vasilisa. Vasilisia is not in her right mind. You want to say new lover? What about Kirill? And Timofey? Vazia, you are becoming a con man. Start some man and don't fall into the abyss from my guards. I'm not falling into the abyss. Moreover, I'm not surprised by the presence of several lovers in you. But don't you think that this is unfair in relation to Timofey? How do you and him after them in bed you lie? Vazia knows less, sleeps better. Or what do you want to say to this? Christina gazed perfectly at the colored eyes. Do you want to tell everything to Timofey? Well, then go. Do you think he will believe you? Yes. Even if he believes, he will forgive me anyway. He loves me. I was not going to tell anything to your husband. It just so happened that he became my friend. I'm ashamed to look him in the eye. What are you ashamed of? You're not his wife. The fact that I cover you, thereby betraying him. Oh, what tenderness. Vasya, forget it. These are only my problems. Let's change the subject. What did you want to talk to me about? Vasilisa was silent, realizing that talking to Christina about the family was useless. So you wanted to talk about it? Christina guessed. No, and what I wanted to say is no longer relevant. That's great. Let me introduce you to Gleb. And without waiting for an answer, Christina's girlfriend waved her hands, calling the man to come to their table. Gleb, she said. Meet, this is my best friend Vasilisa. Vazia. This is Gleb. Very nice. Gleb gallantly bowed to Vasilisa's hand. She quickly shook her hand. Gleb, not paying attention to her friend's behavior, continued to say, Do you have a friend who looks like you? My friend was at work. She doesn't go anywhere, and became damn boring. Let's find one. The man said it without hesitation, throwing Vasilisa with a. Then maybe we won't drag on, and today you and your friend will invite us somewhere? Christina sang, smiling at Gleb. Great idea. Vazia, please tell Dima that we decided to arrange a girlfriend and went to the cinema. Sorry, Chris, but I have other plans for tonight. Vasilisa, angry, said. The friend decided that she could decide who to go with and where to go with her. And she makes me lie and block her way. No way. Hey, what's wrong with you? Christina looked at her friend in surprise. What fly bit you? Why did you get up from the chair and turn your head to the side? Come on, let's go for a walk together. Vasilisa followed her. What's wrong with you, friend? Are you trying to get into my personal life again? Christina's voice heard a threat. I think you're the one trying to interfere in my personal life. Vasilisa said, I didn't ask you to introduce me to the old-age Lavalasses and decide where I should go in the evening. You won't need someone like that soon. Vasilisa suddenly became absolutely indifferent. She suddenly realized that they had long been different people with Christina. They don't like being together. I'll go, Christina. Vasilisa was tired and headed to the exit. Well, get out of here. They're building an innocent sheep here. I'll somehow live without you. Hello. After such a dirty fight with Christina, Vasilisa was no longer surprised, but the appearance of Timofey near her apartment was a surprise. Hello. Come in. Vasilisa let the man into the hallway. Something happened? Yes, a lot of things. Timofey took off his shoes and jacket and went to the kitchen. Vasilisa put on her teapot and looked at the man in a questionably way. I only found out today that you had a fight with Christina. Is it because of my request? No. In the last 2 weeks, Vasilisa has already calmed down with the fact that she no longer has friends. She quit her job explaining this by the fact that it is boring to sit in the office, got into a nightclub. Now they disappear there all night. I'm glad she found a job for herself. Vasilisa calmly said, "Why did Timofey come? We practically don't see each other. She called me, but lately I've been in love with all these noisy parties. However, it's not right to sit alone at home. So, I decided to come to you. You don't mind? No, if I'm in the way, I'll leave. No, you don't bother me." Vasilisa spoke quietly. They were walking in the park. Vasilisa still couldn't decide to tell Timofey about the offer at work. She was afraid of his reaction and wanted to know his opinion. Today, Oleg Mihailovich reminded her that she had a week left to think about it. And exactly a week passed since that evening when Timofey appeared at her doorstep. That evening they talked a little and the man left. Then she didn't dare to tell him why they had a fight with Christina, although Timofey tried to persuade her. She also didn't tell him about her intention to leave for Indonesia. The next day Timofey called her and offered to have dinner together. Of course, I am no longer such a fan of entertainment companies. He laughed sadly into the phone. But even in solitude, I don't want to spend the evening. They had a great time having dinner in a quiet, cozy restaurant and then walking around the park. Timofey was telling about his work, about the funny incidents that happened to him and his colleagues. Vasilisa listened and smiled. She was happy only because she was next to him, that she heard his voice and sometimes touched his hands. They began to meet every day. We walked in the park and even once visited the theater. From time to time, Timofey took her by the hand, and these were the happiest moments. She realized that she was doing the wrong thing, that no matter what, Timofey was married to a man, and her husband, although former friends, but could not do anything to herself, could not refuse these meetings. Yesterday, he took her to the apartment and took her hands. They stood and kept silent for a few seconds, looking into each other's eyes. Then Timofey suddenly hugged her and drank into her lips. Out of surprise, Vasilisa first replied to his kiss. Then, pushing him away, she ran into the apartment, closed the door, and strongly leaned back to the doors. She felt that he had not yet left and was standing behind the door and tried not to even breathe. It seemed that eternity had passed before the moving steps heard behind the doors. Today, Timofey called her as if nothing had happened and offered to meet. At first she wanted to refuse, but then changed her mind. What will this give? Doubts and indecision? No, it's better to put all the points on the D. They walked on the alley silently. Everyone was thinking how to start the conversation. They started together. Vasilisa didn't have time to say it. I know she's lying to me. His words struck her like thunder in the clear sky. Where from? The girl said. So, I was right. You knew everything. There was no anger or irritation in the voice of this mafia. Don't think I'm not angry. You were the best friends, and even when you quarreled, you kept silent. I understand. And how long have you known? Almost immediately, as it happened for the first time. Of course, she didn't tell me anything. But Christina couldn't hide her behavior. Flirted without embarrassing me nearby. At first, I couldn't believe such an honest betrayal. But these frequent walks with you convinced me that I was right. Did you follow us? No, I just know you very well. You can't go to parties so often. Yes, she didn't hide from anyone. And people, unlike deceived spouses, see and hear everything. When Christina left Kirill, he immediately ran to me and began to hint at her infidelity. Tim, I think your wife is cheating on you, he said. Did she leave you? I asked. You should have seen his look. By that time, I was already aware of all Christina's. Vasilisa stopped and turned to the man. I asked you to talk to her about the family. Yes, I'm sorry. Although I knew you well, it's still not enough. I thought you would either guard her and convince me that it was my fault that she had no desire to grow, or give her to the scum as a best friend, wishing to make an impression on me and open my eyes. Wow, you have an opinion about best friends, Vasilisa exclaimed. Sorry, someone else's advice and opinion led me astray. But Vasilisa was so offended by his words that she turned away and walked forward along the alley. Vasya, wait. Timofey drove her over and took her by the hand, forcing her to stop. Well, forgive me. I was a fool to think about you like that. It's just that some time ago, I realized that I didn't need a wife like Christina. I was watching you and regretted that I didn't see you in time. Although that evening when you graduated, I had doubts when I saw you. But the decision was already made at that moment, and I decided not to follow the lead of the flight attendants. Then we rarely began to see each other. I began to think that I did the right thing until I learned about the cheats. Tim, wait, let me finish. When I came to you and asked to talk to Christina about our marriage, I pursued another goal, to find out your attitude towards me. If you had given Christina away then, I would immediately, without a doubt, file for divorce and start taking care of you. And what did you find out? I was irritated, smiling, and was interested in Vasilisa. That you are absolutely indifferent to me. And you decided to stay with Christina? No. At the moment we were getting divorced. What do you mean? The news fell like snow on my head. I can't live with a woman who betrayed me, especially the one I disliked. And what about Christina? Vasilisa literally burned out of curiosity. At first she didn't believe me when I said I was going to divorce her. Then she blamed you for giving her up. Then she said she wouldn't divorce me. Now she seems to have calmed down. Why didn't you tell me anything? To be honest, I wanted to tell you everything. But after the divorce, I couldn't stand it. I wanted to see you. You're trying to make me sure I'm doing everything right. Timofey took a step towards Vasilisa. I understand this, she said. Let me just see you. I will wait as long as you allow me, and I will make any decision you make. Not believing what she hears, Vasilisa stood and looked at Timofey with her eyes rounded. She scolded herself for her trust and submissiveness, but could not do anything to herself. She was with him for too long and had no chance to even touch him. She was watching for someone else's happiness for too long. Everything was too much. The day when Timofey told her that they were getting divorced and that they were feeling for her, she just ran away. She couldn't believe that it was happening to her, that the man she had secretly loved for so many years answered her in mutual. She thought she was sleeping. Therefore, having reached the house, she closed all the locks and tried to wake up. Half an hour later, they called the door. Vasilisa was sitting without shivering. The call was made again. The girl came to the door and looked into Timofey's eyes. Why did he come? Why is he torturing her? But the hands were already opening the locks themselves. The door barely opened, as Vasilisa immediately fell into the embrace of the man. His passionate, demanding kisses deprived her of the strength to resist and think at all. They woke up when a deep night was standing outside the window. Burning with shame, Vasilisa threw herself into the bathroom, where she stood for a long time under the shower and tried to come to her senses and decide what to do next. Vasya, are you okay? He ran behind the door, in a nervous voice of a mafia. Please open the door, I'm worried. Vasilisa turned around in a towel and opened the door, trying to avoid looking at the man in the eye. But he hugged her and led her to the room where there was already a small table, in which there was a bottle of champagne. He explained to the girl's surprised look. Delivery from restaurant's works hours. Then, having put Vasilisa on the couch, he poured them a glass. Vasilisa only nodded and drank with a gulp. Warmness spread over the body, and the tension began to drop. Vasya, forgive me. For what? If I had known that you had no one before me, I would have been more attentive. It's good that I didn't know. Vasilisa smiled and stretched out her glass to him. Their glances met. He was joyfully excited and surprised, and she was sad and thoughtful. Vajia, I feel that something is wrong. What happened after all? I offended you. Did it hurt you? No, you just didn't offend me. I offended myself. But how? I went on a leash with my feelings. I couldn't hold myself back and let all this happen. You are still married. You are a man. I understand that you and Christina have difficult relationships, and you need to be put to rest. I don't blame you. It's me, stupid fool, who couldn't stop you and yourself. What are you talking about? I'm divorcing Christina because she betrayed me and because I don't love her. I want to be with you. It's me, a fool, because I realized too late that I need you. In a week I will be free, and we will get married. Or do you regret it? Did I understand everything wrong? Are you with me out of pity? No, Tim, I've loved you for a long time, but... Then no buts. He concluded her in an embrace. We will get married and be together. I love you and will not let some cockroach in your cute head to interfere with us. The last week of this thought was approaching the end. Vasilisa was preparing a speech for Oleg Mihailovich. She had to convince him to send another man to Indonesia so that it would not affect her career. She was sure that she would be able to come to an agreement with the boss, that she would be much more useful next to him. Suddenly, the broken happiness and love for Timofey gave her strength. Of course, she had a thought of leaving with her beloved, but she was not sure that he would agree. He had a favorite job, a good position here. And what was waiting for him in Indonesia? His engineering skills could hardly be useful there. On won't be able to sit without work for a long time, and after some time, she will start blaming her for leaving him without a favorite job. No, it's better to be fired. She will always be able to work as a translator. In the extreme case, he will be able to get a job at the company where Timofey works. He said that they have translators of the golden age. Or maybe he will really quit the tour company and move closer to his beloved. Then they will practically not part. This thought inspired Vasilisa, and she was no longer afraid of the upcoming conversation with the boss. On the day of the X, Vasilisa was singing with her soul. Timofey cooked breakfast in the kitchen. She suddenly wanted to be a little late for work due to the feeling of limitless happiness. Without turning off the shower to surprise Timofey, she, putting on the towel, slowly left the bathroom and went to the kitchen on the floor. The man was talking to someone on the phone. Vasilisa stopped to not distract him. Let the conversation end, and then she will help him to improve his mood. And why are you pregnant? Vasilisa cooled down. We are getting divorced. They don't care about your position. Vasilisa slowly turned around and ran to the bathroom. Closing the door behind her, she leaned against them and silently cried. Not only did she get married to a man, he will soon be a father. And judging by what she heard, not very good. He doesn't care about his child. And to his mother. No, Vasilisa believed that Timofey loved her. But a man cannot be like this if he does not love. But this love leaves two people unhappy, one of whom is an innocent baby. No, she will not allow the child to grow up without a father. They themselves are to blame for the fact that they allowed their feelings to be splashed too quickly. It's time again to hide them deep inside themselves and never show it again. Calm down, Vasilisa went out of the bathroom. Timofey was thoughtful, but still put her breakfast and poured coffee. Vajia, I will need to go somewhere after work. Will you get home alone? Yes, of course. Vasilisa tried to look safe. Something happened? A small misunderstanding. Wow! It turns out that the child is a small misunderstanding. Vasilisa suddenly became suspicious. Trying to hide her jealousy from such words, she got up and sat down. I'll get to work myself? Okay. Okay. She quickly kissed Timofey and jumped out into the hallway. Hurry up, you can guess everything. Oleg Mihailovich, can I? Komin? Vasilisa. The boss smiled poetically. Did you come to tell me about your decision? Yes, I agree to fly out today. Vasilisa stretched out in a woven chair. A warm, calming breeze blew from the ocean, like a whisper. You did everything right. A little more than a year has passed since her escape. During this time, she had almost calmed down, and memories of Timothy were no longer so painful in her heart. She was sure that she had done the right thing. Too quickly she gave up her feelings, not letting her family and Timothy figure it out. She did not regret what happened. She was happy, even though not for long. But these memories will warm her all her life. She learned what it is to love and be loved. Too hasty. Well, what is done is done. She knew that she had done the right thing, leaving her love and giving Timothy the opportunity to be a good father. The birth of the child was to be reunited with the family of her former friend Christina and beloved man. Perhaps becoming a mother, Christina became more mature and became a good and loving wife, which Timothy dreamed of so much. Oleg Mihailovich did not deceive. She was provided with a free home that she chose herself, a small but cozy chalet with a view of the ocean, and a small bucket for trips around the island. The first months of hard work did not leave room for unhappiness. Vasilisa practically did not sleep doing the opening of the branch. She personally met with representatives of their tour company. She went around all the hotels with which they had contracts, had a conversation with the tourists, during which she found out the unkind performance of the duties of some tour company representatives and the increase in prices in spite of the conditions. She found a suitable room and rented it. She carefully looked through the personal affairs of the staff and talked to everyone in person, and took up his duties. At first, there were some shortcomings unnoticed earlier. Vasilisa recorded them, corrected them, and went on. After months, the branch brought the expected profit for the first time. The system worked as a well-placed mechanism, bringing her satisfaction and pride, and the management's increasing profit. But don't relax. Vasilisa knew it's worth losing your vigilance, as this one will immediately feel her subordinate, and everything will have to start over. But it still became easier. Then memories returned to her. And if during the day she was so involved in her work that she thought of nothing but her, then at night memory servilely returned her in those days when she was so happy. To not return to the state of despair in which she was when she arrived on the island, Vasilisa gave herself a spell that would think about these mafias only once before going to sleep, and only about what was good between them. Mrs. Vasilisa, they came to you. Kahaya, the housekeeper, entered the living room. Kahaya was an Indian woman born in a poor family, if not to say that a poor family. In search of a better life, they moved to Indonesia with their husbands. But they didn't succeed here either. Having lost their jobs by chance, their spouses barely made ends meet. Kahaya walked around the offices, offering her services to the cleaning lady, the laundry woman, and her husband Surya. From morning till night, without bending his back, he worked on the plantation for money. The day when Kahaya had just entered the office of Vasilisa became the happiest for the woman. The young foreigner not only gave her a job in the office, but also, seeing how the woman carefully and with pleasure fulfilled all her wishes, she offered her a permanent job in her house. Having learned that her husband's assistant is working at plantations, Vasilisa invited him to her and offered a job as a driver on a tourist bus. Surya gladly agreed. They settled not far from Shalaya, their new mistress, and every morning they began with a prayer about her health. Vasilisa was happy with her new employees. The only thing they could not do was to call her by name and surname. After long studies and torments, they stopped at Mrs. Vasha. Soon all the subordinates began to call Vasilisa that way. After thinking a little, she gave in. I don't know how. I think Ginter decided to work on the weekend. Vasilisa thought and got up from the chair to greet her deputy. Ginter liked her immediately with her performance, hard work, education, and business skills. He helped her to deal with the mentality of the indigenous people, translated the words from the dialect that she did not understand, pointed out the flaws that she did not notice, and was devoted to her with all his heart. And it was not surprising. The guy from a poor family, no matter how miraculously he managed to get education, never took on such a position with his richer landowners. In all ways, Günther tried to convince his boss that she did not trust him for nothing. She could wake him up at any time of day and night, and he was happy to go to perform her task on the other end of the island. If one of the workers did not go to work, he replaced him with readiness, while explaining the reason for the failure. Günther dealt with the workers who were tired, so that they became quieter than water and lower than grass. Under his vigilant observation, the accounting department of the branch was so transparent that even Vasilisa, not very close to this, understood all the calculations and sums. Vasilisa smiled widely and looked at the newcomer. "You?" The smile crawled off her pale face. Kahaya, seeing the state of the mistress, asked us in a flutter. "Mrs. Vasia, call the police?" "I'll call my husband now." "No, Kahaya," said Vasilisa. "This is my friend. He just came without an invitation. Bring us some coffee." Ka, carefully looking at the guest, left. Vasilisa silently watched the one standing opposite her, unable to say a word, as if there had been no more months, as if that hopeless pain had not gone anywhere. She returned again on the day when she heard his phone conversation. Her heart burst again, in part from despair. "Well, hello, Vasilisa." Timofey violated the prolonged silence. "Hello, Timofey. We'd better part ways." He read the note over and over again and could not understand a word from it. Who to part ways? Why? Why would it be better? The meeting with Christina brought him to his knees. He rushed to Vasilisa to hug her and calm down. He couldn't wait to forget this conversation like a terrible dream and be happy that he is finally getting rid of this traitor. Christina was waiting for him in her club. Since the time they didn't see each other, 2 months have passed. But she has changed a lot. If she used to be a beauty and a coquette, now she has become a vulgarly dressed woman with a striking bright makeup and a cheeky look. "Hello, Tim," she sang and tried to kiss him, but Timofey left. It didn't bother Christina at all, and she, clapping in the sitting, was interested in the person next to her. "Would you like something to drink?" "No, thanks." "What did you want?" "I wanted—" "No, honey, you wanted it." Timofey silently looked at her, and Christina continued. "You wanted a real family? You will now get it. Not with you. But with whom? I'm still your wife. Next week we will be divorced. I don't think the judge will deprive a pregnant woman of her husband." Christina smiled and clapped with strong colored eyelashes. "You are not pregnant with me. I can prove it calmly by sending you for analysis." "Well, Tim, what's the difference between who I'm pregnant with? The main thing is that we will have a full real family. After all, the father is not the one who gave birth, but the one who brought up. I'm sure you'll be a great father." Timofey began to boil. Christina was apparently firmly sure that he would gladly accept her child and will raise him. "Christina, I'm divorcing you, and I don't need your child. Let his father raise him. Go to him. His father is a married man, and he doesn't need children on the side, and lovers are needed." "Well, Tim, that's enough, Christina. If you don't give me a divorce for good, I will be forced to require a DNA test, and then all your friends and relatives will know what you are. Although I will not be surprised if they already know. You do not hide your similarities." There was no one at home. Turning on the light in the hallway, Timofey noticed a note on the dresser. "We better part." Without undressing, he walked into the room, sat on the couch, and sat down on a piece of paper. Why? What happened? Did Vasilisa suddenly realize that she doesn't love him? Was it all temporary, and she cooled down so quickly? He was dialing her number again and again, but the subscriber was unavailable. Timofey jumped in and left the apartment. An hour later, he called Vasilisa's parents at the door. I was surprised myself why it was so successful. Vasilisa's mother was whistling around Timofey, pouring him tea and cutting a pie. She called me from work and said she would leave in a couple of hours. She said she would explain everything later. Didn't you know that she was offered a job in Indonesia? No. She didn't tell me anything. Do you know where exactly she is going? Where exactly? Even her boss doesn't know. She said she was given the right to choose any location, and she would already be able to decide where to stay. Don't worry, I'll tell you as soon as I find out. But why didn't she tell me anything? The woman just shook her shoulders. The next day, Timofey was in the office where Vasilisa worked. Alas, young man, we have not received any news from her yet. Oleg Mihailovich held out his hands. You run in a month. Then we will already know her location. What month? Timofey was wandering around his office and didn't know what to do. His mother, Vasilisa, called. She still didn't know anything. Calm down, Timofey. Your wandering won't bring you any good. Be patient. As soon as I find out something, I'll call you back right away. The man put the phone down and thought. And really, what is he thinking about? If she doesn't want to be with him, why bother her? He jumped up and went around the office again. But why did he run without saying a word, without talking, without explaining? He would understand. No, he wouldn't understand. He wouldn't leave her until she came back to him. Maybe that's why she left without saying anything? His reaction was frightened. By the evening, Timofey still calmed down. First he will deal with Christina, then he will deal with Vasilisa's search. To amaze and indignation of Timofey, Christina said at the court that she was expecting a child and did not want to leave him without a father. When Timofey demanded to conduct a DNA test, she said that it was dangerous for the child and she would not allow this to be done. The court stood up to Christina and postponed the hearing on the divorce until the birth of the child, saying that she had quit her job and would be preparing for her next birth, and now he is obliged to keep her. Barely holding back so as not to pull her out of the door, Timofey walked through the teeth. Okay, Liv, I will provide you with the products and necessary medicines, if the doctor prescribes them. But you will not get a penny from me. Will you be Hewlett? You will fly out like a traffic jam. Christina stretched her lips in a smile. She knows how to make a man fall in love and get rich. But the smile began to slide off her face when she saw that Timofey was packing his things. Where are you going? I'll live with my friends. You didn't think I'd want to live with you in one apartment, did you? You're just afraid you won't get tired in front of me, said Christina. Timofey just shook his head and went out the door. Christina decided that she would be fine without Timofey. She is a beautiful woman who calls for instant attraction from men. Hello, kitty. How about we meet today? Sorry, I'm Busse. Puppy, your baby missed you. They say you're pregnant. Sorry, but I don't want to meet women in this situation. What's wrong with that? Short gags. We want to see our daddy. Christine, I told you I don't need this child. I have a wife for my childbirth. And don't call me anymore. Who are you, baby? Are you crazy? I'm Christine. We met last weekend at the club. Oh, is this the one who is pregnant and is going to hang someone else's child on the dear husband? Sorry, baby. Nothing personal, but I prefer younger girls, and you were so drunk mistake by. Was tired of her. What does it all mean? Is she sleeping? Her lovers just sent her. How could this happen at all? She took the phone again to call. Oh, Chris, hello. We have such a party here. Come on, come. Well, thank God. Somewhere she is waiting for her. Christina hurriedly began to gather. Yes, who thought that such a tear would grow out of a cheerful, mobile girl? Larissa Nikolaevna carefully poured tea for Timofey. Can't you hear anything from Vasilisa? Timofey didn't give a damn about his wife. He was visiting Vasilisa's parents. After he left the house, Timofey first went to the hotel. I didn't want to embarrass my friends with my presence. At the very doors of the hotel, he unexpectedly met Larissa Nikolaevna, Vasilisa's mother. What are you doing here, Tim? The woman was surprised. And what are you doing here? He politely answered the question with a question of Timofey. I was visiting a friend and decided to walk. I did not pay attention to the tone of the man, Larissa Nikolaevna. I'm moving. To the hotel? The woman was surprised to see a young man with tired eyes and tired look. Let's go have a coffee. She grabbed him by the hand and dragged him to the nearest cafe. Timofey did not resist. Having ordered a cup of coffee, Larissa Nikolaevna ordered, "Tell me, is it the tension of the last days, or the despair because of the separation with Vasilisa?" But Timofey put everything on the line, and about the broken family life, and about the cheats of Christina, and about the love for Vasilisa, and about his two long thoughts that led to the escape of his beloved, and pregnancy from another wife who does not want to give him a divorce. Larissa Nikolaevna listened to him almost without interrupting, only sometimes asked clarifying questions about his striking story. You forget about the hotel. Go to Vasilisa. Her apartment is empty anyway. Timofey first refused, but then decided that it would be better this way. Since that day, he began to visit Vasilisa's parents often, hoping that the girl would someday sign her location. She called me on the phone, but I could not find out where she was, and she forbade me to mention about you. Timofey sighed heavily. If not for this situation with Christina's pregnancy, he would have not thought about searching for Vasilisa, would have traveled all over Indonesia, but found her. Although this would not be necessary, it is only worth knowing the location of the branch, and the head's address will not be difficult. I think she somehow found out about Christina's pregnancy and decided to give your family a chance. What chance? Christina is not pregnant with me. We haven't slept with her for several months before I started dating Vasilisa. I would have believed faster that Vazia is pregnant. Well, don't shout. Everything will be fine. And I assure you, Vasilisa loves you and will understand everything. But you must first understand your problems. You don't need to start new relationships without ending the old ones. And go to Vasilisa for a new life. I'm afraid Christina will go to everything to keep me as her husband. So think how to make sure this doesn't happen. Who is this little fat guy here? Christina hardly opened her eyes and looked at the talking man. Above her, a huge, loose man of an uncertain age with a huge red nose, with a slender face. That the woman immediately felt a sense of nausea. Having pushed the man away, Christina rushed to look for a bathroom. After finding her, she stood in front of the sink for a long time. When the attack was over, she looked in the mirror. Wavy hair, blurred mascara, no clothes. What's wrong with that? Christina again leaned towards the sink. It was a decent apartment, but not tidy. The man was wearing only shorts. The huge hairy belly was sticking out no worse than Christina's. Here, have some rest. The man stretched her a glass with some liquid. It will be better. Christina grumbled and looked for water in her eyes. How did she end up here? As if answering her silent question, the man kindly said, Well, Valerka and I had a little fun. The future moms also want to relax. Then they went to my place. They also drank here, and your friend got drunk with Valerka, and you stayed with me. You know, I love pregnant women. Will you take me home? Christina's head split from her own voice. Come on. What are you doing there? You said yourself that your husband doesn't care about you. Tolstoy smiled kindly. Stay. I'll take care of you. I see how bad you are. I love pregnant women. Doll, I understand everything but a child of someone else, and even with your way of life during pregnancy, I don't need it at all. Vladimir hurriedly dressed. Christina sat in a chair in his apartment, pressing her feet. A month passed since they met. At first, she wanted to forget about this vulgar, unruly man, like a terrible dream. But he was surprisingly caring and cute. He took care of her, gave flowers and gifts, did all her chores, and drove around restaurants and clubs. Christina was patient with her lack of the best candidates. I'm giving birth, she thought, and I'll send this fatso to hell. However, she paid for the apartment and food regularly. But she never got pregnant. There was no time. She understood that as soon as the child was born, Timofey would immediately require an examination and the court would go to him. Christina knew that the court would not force Timofey to raise his child, which means that she would have to divorce and not count. And also the screaming baby with a betrayal. There was no hope for her parents. As soon as her father learned about her daughter's general lifestyle and pregnancy, he forbade her from coming to them. Mother could not help her, as she completely depended on her husband. Somehow, of course, it was decided to marry Vladimir. But surprisingly, Christina was always a good-for-nothing, and a man who tried to please her refused. Solve the problems with the child, with your husband, and no problem, we will get married. We're just going to get the heir right away. Vladimir smiled widely and waved his hand. That's it, Kissel. Bye. Until the evening. Oh, really? Well, wait a minute. Christina jumped out of the chair and started to pack. You'll still run after me. Come on, he wanted his child. But you don't care. And you will raise this one as cute. Having packed her things, the woman left Vladimir's apartment without pity. Let her get a little nervous. When she got home, she immediately called her friend Lika, the same person they met with Vladimir. Hey friend, how about we move out? Chris, it's probably hard to move out before you. What do you mean move out? What? I'll give you a ride. Well, of course I don't mind. But look, you know what? Oh, nothing. In short, in our place. And you are nothing. Pretty. A young, handsome boy looked at Christina. I'm pretty? Christina laughed drunk. Yes, I'm a beauty. Yeah, especially a belly. The guy laughed too. And do you want to continue the party in a more modest place? Because it's so stuffy here, and there are a lot of people. Chris, let's get out of here. Lika pulled Christina's hand. Come on. Young man is calling us to a closed party. Let's go home. Lika's voice was excited, but Christina didn't pay attention. Well, let's go to your party? She looked at the guy with the call. He smiled broadly. Christina tried to stop Lika's girlfriend for the last time, but then waved her hand. Christina woke up on the bench in the square. Her head hurt and crumbled. Her whole body was broken and very wet. The woman looked around. Where is she? How did she end up here? A smiling guy's face surfaced in her memory. Then the face became bigger. She remembered that someone was laughing loudly and pouring disgusting liquid into her. It was painful, disgusting, and scary. Then everything disappeared. She looked at herself and almost screamed in horror. A huge, stormy spot was floating on torn clothes below. Christina looked for her handbag. Fortunately, she and the phone were in place. Volodya! Vova, help me! Next time, Christina woke up already in the hospital room. Headache again. The taste of metal was felt in the mouth, and the bottom of the stomach was completely. Finally, a familiar voice sounded somewhere nearby. Hardly turning her head, she saw Vladimir. Where am I? She whispered with her dry lips. In the hospital. I ran all over the park before I could find you. You were in terrible condition, all beaten up with terrible bleeding. Well, did you have a walk? Christina turned around and cried. She spent 2 months in the hospital. After what happened, the child did not survive. The chance of getting pregnant again was not great. Volodya was successfully visiting her in the hospital and trying to cheer her up. After the discharge, he took her to his home. A few months later, a court was held where Christina, without a word, signed the divorce papers. Now she was sitting at home, and even Vladimir was walking for food. Every evening, she was eagerly waiting for him from work and go to the club, where she will hook up a younger and more promising girl in terms of giving birth to children. That evening, Vladimir was late. Christina again and again dialed his phone number, but the subscriber was unavailable. She began to shake. Tears rolled from her eyes. Thoughts of suicide ran through her head. From tears, she did not hear the key turn in the lock. Surprised and frightened, Vladimir rushed to her. Christina, what happened? You are not here and not there. The phone does not answer. I thought something happened. From crying, she hardly spoke. What will happen to me? The phone sat down, and I'm here. Volodya started to dig through his pockets. Finally found what I was looking for. I came for this. Christina stood up to the ring. What are you doing? Are you making me an offer? Well, yes. Vladimir smiled shyly. Why is it so easy for us to live like this? You are now a free woman, but most likely I won't be able to give you birth. You can't. We'll cure it. The long, painful expectation came to an end. He is free. It remains to resign from work and buy tickets. And what if she rejects you? What if she has long been married? What if Timofey Peter tried to talk him out of the decision-making decision? Take a vacation for the beginning. Go and find out everything. Find out the details. What if she is already married to some aborigines and raises a couple of baby mulats? According to her mother, Vasilisa did not do anything like this. What if she hid it from her mother carefully? Why? What's the point of hiding from her grandparents and grandchildren, even if they're colored men? Her mother is a wonderful woman. She has no prejudice against the color of her skin. Still, I would not rush to fire you. It's okay. If Vasilisa does not want to see me, or is already married, I will come back and find another job for myself. After all, I am a good specialist. As you know, Timofey was standing in front of a small two-story building, on the first floor of which there was a cafe of European type. On the second, a branch of the tour company Vasilisa. Despite the weekend, there were few visitors to the cafe. He entered, ordered a cup of coffee, and turned to the bartender in the hope that he knew English. Timofey did not speak other languages. Sorry, but why are there so few guests? It's not the season. Fortunately, the bartender knew English. The rainy season is about to begin. Tourists don't like it. Timofey nodded his head and drank coffee. He didn't know how to talk to the director of the tour firm located above the cafe. But he suddenly helped him himself. You are not Russian by chance? The bartender was interested. Yes, how did you find out? Timofey was surprised. Oh, I know all about foreigners, especially when they start talking. Barman smiled. And thanks to my new neighbor, Barman pointed his eyes at the ceiling. Now I recognize Russians right away. Interesting, Timofey shook his head. Then I was very lucky that your neighbor was Russian. And I don't have much with languages, and I would like to see the country exactly in those places that I am interested in, and not that which are shown to tourists. This is your address. Mrs. Vazia is oriented towards clients. Everyone will find their approach from her. Great. Then I will not postpone it. Happy with my cunningness, Timofey got off the high chair. I'm afraid you won't be able to do anything today. The bartender stopped him. Why? Mrs. Vazia has a day off today. Her deputy is there instead of her. But he does not solve such individual issues. Nothing. I'll try to make a deal. Timofey met a friendly young man who spoke Russian well. How can I help you? I need Vasilisa Konstantinovna. Kindly, but at the same time demandingly, said Timofey. Mrs. Vazia is on a day off today, but I assure you, you can fully trust me. Not a little bit embarrassed by his tone, the young man replied. I'm Vasilisa Konstantinovna's friend, and I would like to talk to her in person. The smile on the guy's face changed with distrust. Then Timofey got his phone and showed him a few pictures of Vasilisa, where she was with his parents, with him, and with Christina. Okay, I'll explain how to get to her house. The young man was slightly uncertain. 10 minutes later, Timofey rushed in a rented car along the highway leading to the ocean. She became even more beautiful. Light sunburn, local clothes were very much in the way. Timofey admired her while she was coming to his appearance. Hello, Vasilisa. He wanted to run up to her, grab her by the hand, and kiss until she softened in his embrace and answered him. Hello, Timofey. In Vasilisa, there were contradictory feelings. She wanted to throw herself at him, and immediately. But instead she asked, "How did you find me?" "It was easier than waiting for the day when I could see you. You waited a long time. I'm sorry, and I'll tell you everything and explain if you let me." They talked until the evening. Vasilisa started crying and then laughing, then crying and laughing again. Timofey hugged her, consoled her, kissed, and laughed. The anxious Kahaya looked into the living room from time to time and didn't know what to do. Finally, without holding back, she ran after her husband and anxiously asked him to watch the guest. Surya had enough of one look to understand everything. He gently hugged his wife behind his shoulders and pulled her away from the living room door. And he found her. "I think you shouldn't rush to work tomorrow morning. And today go early. Don't bother the lovers." Kaha did not believe, but when she returned to the living room to ask when to serve dinner, her lady Vajya passionately kissed the man who had arrived. 5 years have passed. Tell me, Timofey, is yours also whining over children like mine? Even I can play with my own son only under her supervision. But first I have to take a shower, shave, and treat my hands with antiseptic without smell. Vladimir was unhappy, grumbled, and drank a little beer from the glass. I even drank less because, you see, the child is harmful to the smell of your burger. And what kind of burger is there? From a glass of beer. And about stronger, I don't remember when I drank. Too hard for her, your son got. Here she is shaking over him. Timofey looked for Vasilisa with his eyes. The wife calmly slept in the chaise, taking care of the twins, the grandmother and grandfather. Christina and Kakai enthusiastically discussed the sunscreen for children, without taking the clinging glances from the son of Christina and the daughter of Kakai. Mrs. Vasia, on the mini beach belonging to Vasilisa and Timofey, as always with a wide smile. "Let's go to the table. The meat is ready." Everyone was busy. Christina, looking at Vladimir, grabbed the son and rushed to the shawl. The man who came up took the daughter in hand and, hugging his wife, also went home. The twins were sewing, holding the long skirt of the grandmother. They closed the small detachment of Vasilisa and Timofey. The man, hugging his wife, tried to walk as slowly as possible. "Tim, do you want everyone to wait for us?" Vasilisa stopped. He pressed her a little to himself and kissed her with a long kiss. Then, after breaking off, he said how good it is that life has set everything in its place. How good it is that we are together. I love you. I love you too. Subscribe to the channel so as not to miss new, interesting stories. I will also be grateful for the like under this video. See you soon.